Must I remind the senator from Malistère that negotiations are continuing with the separatists. Peace is our objective here, not war.
My noble colleagues, less than an hour ago, an assassination attempt was made against my life. One of my bodyguards and 6 others were ruthlessly and senselessly murdered. I was the target, but more importantly, the security measure before you was the target. I have led the opposition to building this army, and someone will stop at nothing to assure its passage. Wake up, senators! You must wake up! If you offer the separatists violence, they can only show violence in return. Many will lose their lives, all will lose their freedom. I pray you do not let fear push you into disaster. Vote down this security measure, which is nothing less than a declaration of war. Does anyone here want that? I cannot believe they do.
Order! Order!
Due to the lateness of the hour and the seriousness of this motion, we will take up these matters tomorrow. Until then, the Senate is adjourned.
That was a deleted scene from Star Wars Episode 2. At a time when the whole country is supposed to be at the threshold of peace, there are those who are expecting a hair-trigger moment that might mean violence and possibly war. Tonight we're going to set out to continue our discussion on Mindanao and to look at both our shared histories as Christians and Muslims and the issues that continue to divide us. I'm Manolo Quezon, the Explainer. This is the Explainer, where I explain why issues are issues. Now, returning as our explainee tonight is Bettina Magsaysay, ANC's weather girl, and she was also with us during last week's discussion on the Bangsamoro homeland. And we're also joined in our studio audience by members of the Young Moro League. Welcome to you, Bettina, and welcome to our audience. At this point, we'd like to invite you to join in our discussion, and Bettina is going to be telling you how to do that.
Yes, just please text react space X space your name and your question or reaction and send to 2366 for Globe and Sun and 231 for Smart. Or you can log on to www.the-explainer.com.
More on ancestral domains claims and how they affect you and I when we return. Chances are, if you visit this blog, you'll get a shock. Prominently displayed on the blog is this map that we're going to show you on your screen. Now, this map carves out the entirety of Mindanao plus Palawan as what the blog and the map calls Moroland. Now, if you were to visit Wikipedia, on the other hand, you would encounter this map. Now, which shows the present-day Muslim provinces of the Philippines in red and the territory considered their ancestral domain in yellow. Now, for the past few weeks, of course, a public debate has erupted over an altogether different, because official map. Now, here it is again. We're going to be showing it to you to refresh your memory. It's from Bong Montesa's blog, and as you know, he was involved and is an advocate of the BJE agreement with the MILF. And here it shows in red, you see the red areas here, the present-day extent of the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao. And it shows in green over here our territories our government intends to commit to submitting to a plebiscite by August next year for inclusion in the BJE. But this map, the next one we're going to show you, but this map only tells part of the story. The Philippine Daily Inquirer recently published the same map, but this time showing 3 colors. And here it is behind us. Now the area in red is today's ARMM. The areas in green in Mindanao and Palawan are the areas to undergo a plebiscite in August 2009. And the areas here in yellow, not in Montesa's maps, are areas the government commits to, quote, special economic and cultural affirmative action implemented by the central government, end quote, and which would undergo their own plebiscite in 25 years. Now, last week, we saw that the MILF didn't invent the territories they desire, for this map, among others, dating to the end of the Spanish era, shows that indeed at least one Muslim political entity survived and received recognition as such. Here it is, the Sultanate of Sulu. And again, to remind you, it's that dividing line that shows Spanish territories from the Sultanate of Sulu. Now, until now, I've been talking about Mindanao in 2 terms, Muslim and Christian. But as blogger A Day in the Life of RJ pointed out, in the Inquirer Current blog that I co-write with John Neri, a touching comment appeared. It was written by someone by the name of Lumad. And Bettina, I'd like to ask you to read their comment.
Yes. Bilang isang lumad ng Mindanao, matuloy man ang kasunduang GRP-MILF o hindi, magkaroon man ng digmaang sibil o hindi, o magkaroon man ng hiwalay na estado ang Muslim at Kristiyano sa Mindanao, ang talo sa lahat ang mga lumad, nananatili sa kabundukan, nananatiling walang pinag-aralan, nananatiling walang boses o representasyon sa anumang larangan, nananatiling walang lakas o pagdepensa sa sarili at anumang digmaang magaganap. Ang lahat ay malinaw at kahit sa anong panig sa gobyerno, Kristiyanong Mindanao o Moro, ang lumad ng Mindanao ay baliwala sa lahat.
Now, I'd like to spend a moment on this comment and introduce another map. In 1890, the year San Miguel Beer made its debut, the Spanish government published a map. It was based on the work of an Austrian by the name of Ferdinand Blumentritt, who was, of course, Rizal's great and good friend. Now, here behind us is the map, and I'd like you to take a good look at it. It's what's called an ethnographic map. That is, its objective is to portray the distribution of the various kinds of peoples inhabiting the territory known as the Philippines. Now, the map itself is color-coded in 3 main colors. Red, as you can see here, represents Christian areas of the Philippines. Yellow, which you can see up here and down here, represents what the Spaniards called pagans, and we today call indigenous peoples, including the various Lumad peoples of Mindanao. And down here, in green, it represents the areas inhabited by Muslims. Now again, first of all, this map reinforces the information we learned from other 19th century maps last week. The areas of Muslim settlements did correspond pretty much to the old Sultanate of Sulu and included parts of Palawan. But you will see as well from this map that entire chunks of our present-day country were considered the habitation of indigenous peoples. Large swathes of Mindanao, you can see here in yellow, and large swathes of northern Luzon. Now, this website tells us that in 1890, the year Blumentritt's ethnographic data was published as a map, the population of what we now know as the Philippines totaled 6.6 million. It had doubled by 1927 and doubled again by 1956 to 24 million. And by the 1970s, when open fighting broke out in Mindanao, our national population had reached 36 million. And of course, since the year I was born in 1970, our population was almost tripled to today's 90 million plus. So is it no wonder then that first of all, fighting is so prevalent, and second of all, that we now think of our indigenous peoples as tiny tribes hiding in remote mountains? And yet, for Muslim, Christian, or indigenous person alike, for thousands of years, and within living memory for some Filipinos, the reality was that people lived and roamed around freely and fairly undisturbed in fairly underpopulated areas. Indeed, if today it's lack of space that has us ready to kill each other, it's the wide open spaces of the past that also led to the same thing. Now, this book, Raiding, Trading, Feasting, The Political Economy of Philippine Chiefdoms by Laura Lee Junker, explains why slave raiding expeditions were such a fixture for centuries, and these expeditions are important in explaining some of the lingering resentments to this day. Bettina, I'd like you to read an excerpt.
Because of the relative abundance of productive land relative to labor in the pre-Hispanic Philippines and other parts of Southeast Asia, seizure of slaves but also agricultural stores, metal